we are still looking for some very hot conditions heading our way. The near future will be temperatures that'll be decently, not entirely too hot, but over the course of the few days as we go toward the weekend, that is where we are really going to start seeing the problems. And when I say problems, I'm talking about high temperatures back in the mid to upper 90s as we head towards Saturday and Sunday. Very uncomfortable for doing work outdoors. Definitely time to make certain that you are ready to go, and we'll talk more about where you can get heat information to find out more details about how to forecast that information. That coming up in just a little bit, so stay tuned for more on that. More details again on the weekend forecast, and we'll take a look, especially as we get into the next several days. We want to make certain that everybody's ready to go and can recognize signs of heat injuries. That was part of our weather quiz for the day. We'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit. For those of you who have never joined us before, this is Weather Overtime. We are live and direct Tuesday night, the 18th of June, from downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm Chief Meteorologist Austin Onek. Forecast information always available at wdef.com/weather. My email address at the bottom portion of the screen, aonek@wdef.com. And again, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to all the new followers on Twitch over the last few weeks. Glad to have everybody along and watching what goes on there. We'll get to a lot more coming up in just a little bit, but as per usual, let's go ahead and start off with a look at what happened today. Having a loss of data. Apologies about that. That sometimes happens. We'll get that back up and going here in just a little while, hopefully. Looking into the next couple of days, we're going to be seeing the potential of some more heat. It's still very toasty out there with numbers back in the lower to mid 80s, so we don't have too much of anything going on in the way of very cool weather with the downtown camera looking out over the area there. Lee Point, that from the Bailey's Heating and Air camera. Plainview Outdoor Advertising camera from 153 and 64. Traffic on the light side and moving along well. North face of Lookout Mountain and Ruby Falls seen on the north side there, looking off toward Raccoon Mountain off in the distance. Beautiful sunset. There's not a lot of lingering light because it's just about 10 o'clock. We're rapidly approaching the longest day of the year. That's coming up the day after tomorrow, where we should see over 14 and a half hours of daylight, and then we start getting slowly darker once again in the next few days after that. Looking toward the Tomahawk crane and rigging camera, traffic light and moving along very nicely, but all the way out toward Signal Mountain, very much on the hazy side, so you can barely see the lights of the tower transmitters out that direction. So a little, if anything, going on there. Chattanooga Zoo camera. Hope the ice cream safari went well this weekend. Looking toward Erlanger Hospital and off toward the northwest. A lot of clouds today, and those clouds actually help to keep our temperatures down by just a little bit. Looks like we'll have to do a focus reset on the Speedy's Total Car Care camera. Got a very soft focus going on at this time. Temperatures back in the mid-80s. Right now at the Chattanooga Airport, we'll be looking for some fairly warm temperatures to continue. Numbers across the entire area back in the 60s in North Carolina, low 70s in there as we go upslope toward the Appalachians, and upper 70s to lower 80s across much of the region. We've got high pressure off the East Coast, which is keeping that heat dome well in place. I don't think we're going to be seeing too much of anything else in the way of major league heat. Now, this weekend, that could be a different story, but for immediately, doesn't look to be all that totally terrible. So for overnight, what are we looking at? Not great weather. Lows in Chattanooga, at least, back in the mid to upper 60s. And then over time into tomorrow, I think with more sunshine, we're going to be seeing high temperatures back easily into the 90s once again. But we'll talk more about that coming up here in just a little bit. Let's take a look and see if I could get my graphics in the right order. That would definitely help. We're going to show you. Here we go. All right. So for the next couple of days, we're not seeing any problems with, again, major amounts of heat and humidity. We have no advisories out there involving the heat, so that is good news unto itself. what we are going to be seeing is some very toasty numbers coming up into the next few days. Notice the wind arrows on here coming in from the south and the east. That is exactly where we've been seeing the winds from that area, very strong area of high pressure off the east coast. That is helping to kick a lot of this moisture from the tropics up into the portions of the western Atlantic and then into the plain states along the Gulf Coast. Lots of moisture. There's also a little farther southward here. We are just 1 second. That's potential tropical cyclone number 1, the first designated storm of the season. Notice the low pressure with counterclockwise winds here, high pressure winds clockwise here. That's helping to focus that moisture off the Bahamas, the Atlantic, and the Gulf of Mexico through the Caribbean up our direction. Now, some of that is taking place in the form of showers and thunderstorms with potential tropical cyclone 1 shoveling that moisture. Could be some very heavy rain west of New Orleans down toward Houston, Brownsville, Corpus Christi. Not the best place for a beach vacation. More on the tropics in just a little bit. Our latest storm system, which was heading our way, but because that high pressure is boosting that storm back to the north of us, we could see storm system after storm system arriving. But as you look off to the east, that area of high pressure, it may be 1,000 miles away, but it is having a big impact here by stopping any storm systems from heading down our direction into and around portions of the News 12 viewing area. So little, if anything, happening because of this situation, and it looks like little is going to be changing on that anytime soon. So we do not see any major amounts of rainfall. I am not totally out of mind in saying that I think by the time we get into the afternoon hours, mornings not quite so unstable, high 60s to low to mid 70s for temperatures, and then we go into the next few days. I think there is going to be enough moisture streaming up off the Gulf and the Atlantic to give us the fuel for the thunderstorms. What we need is more heat baking the lower surface of the atmosphere down toward the surface of the earth, and that could boil up some showers and thunderstorms. I just don't see a lot of them actually happening at this point. Now, we go into the next few days, pattern really doesn't change. Very muggy and warm in the morning, very hot and more sunshine mixed with clouds in the afternoon. Lather, rinse, repeat for Friday. Little, if anything, changes there. And then we get into Saturday to where we see the increasing possibility of some more chances of showers and thunderstorms developing toward the afternoon, but this is also where we're starting to head. This computer model is a little bit, shall we say, conservative in their estimates, because last week we saw a lot of triple-digit temperatures down south of us, and that never happened. But we are going to see the potential for more in the way of very hot weather, especially as we go into the weekend. That is where we're going to really see the problems coming up, with temperatures getting very much on the stifling side. So if you have any plans for being outdoors, this weekend is going to be the worst potential of any problems going on when it comes to heat, and especially, again, with heat injuries. Sorry for the delay. I'm trying to make certain that my chat function is not messing up on Twitch, having some error messages here that I'm trying to figure out. So as of right now, again, for the time being, everything decently quiet here. Unfortunately, it's just going to stay on the hot side. There we go. Okay, stream chat function back working again for Twitch. Want to make certain that everybody can check in if they want to. If you're on YouTube, please check in. It's through the News 12 site, not my particular website. You can catch the repeat of Weather Overtime at various times, again, on my YouTube page, but we are streaming live to the News 12 YouTube page right now. Now, the other good news is there are no heat advisories in effect. There are, as you might expect, more heat advisories out into the desert Southwest, and there is also a lot more from Maine to Indiana and Michigan. Lots of heat advisories. That's the orange. Purple is excessive heat warnings, where brick red colors indicate around the tri-state area where things are roasting pretty well. Temperatures will be back just about advisory level. What does this mean? These alerts are issued, especially the heat advisory, the most numerous one you see here in orange, when the National Weather Service sees a forecast heat index number, that's the temperature plus the humidity to get that feels like index, when that hits a temperature of 105 degrees, that starts becoming dangerous to work or exercise outdoors for long periods of time. So at 105 Fahrenheit heat index plus, that is where we start seeing these advisories getting issued. And when you start going over 110, that's when you see the excessive heat warnings and watches being posted. So that is for the hottest of the hot conditions. But notice at this point, most importantly, none in effect for the News 12 viewing area. It comes as far south as northern Kentucky and western West Virginia. And southern and central parts of Ohio. But down here, it's not hot enough to have those advisories. So it is, again, so far looking a lot better. For us, it is going to be uncomfortable. There's no question about that. But it is also going to be very much on the uncomfortable side outdoors. Tomorrow is Juneteenth, the celebration of freedom coming up. And again, temperatures tomorrow for the last day of spring will also be, again, pretty much about where they were today. We'll try to look up and see what that temperature was for the almanac page coming up in just a little bit. Then for Thursday, we start that march upwards until we hit Saturday. First day of summer is going to feel like it. Temperatures just above normal, way above normal as we go into Saturday. And then starting with more rainfall chances by next week, as high pressure out over the Atlantic relents and heads off to the east a little bit toward Iceland. That's where we see the temperatures here start to kind of drop and stabilize. But according to the extended forecast from the Climate Prediction Center, it looks like this heat, even though it's not going to be blazing hot, will be sticking around just above normal for this time of the year, and that'll go all the way into what looks to be pretty much the end of the month. So June looks like it is going to be a hot one. I still don't see any record highs being set. The record high for Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, is at the century mark, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But in the meantime, outdoor activities next several days get set to get hot. Be ready to watch out for heat injuries. That's going to be a very important thing. And again, that is something we really have to take into account, especially at this time of the year. Now, that was one of the things we talked about earlier on, to where we were talking about the difference. What is the sign of heat injuries that you need to pay attention to? And this was a big thing in Boy Scouts a long time ago, to where if you notice something that is going on, where a person who's on a camp out, a hike, who's pushing it too hard in very hot and humid conditions, if you've ever been to Camp Jayhawk northeast of Topeka during the summertime, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to uncomfortable heat out there. So the injuries, heat stroke, worst of the worst. Just below that is heat exhaustion. What one noticeable, very big, different symptom is something you can use to determine if it's heat stroke or heat exhaustion. 70% said exceptional nausea. No one voted for swollen fingers or toes or tingling nerves, and the other vote was dry skin at 30%. That's the correct answer, and that is exceptionally important to keep an eye on. With heat exhaustion, and congratulations to everybody who chose that. Thanks for voting in our friendinroofing.com weather poll of the day. More polls available at wdef.com/vote now. This is one thing to really take a look at for now. This is exceptionally important. You can get this graphic from the National Weather Service, or if you just search heat injuries, this is something to really, really take a look at. Because if you've got people who, and a lot of people do this because they think, oh, I don't need to slow down, I can just barrel on through. It's not that hot. That has led to a lot of big problems with that statement, to not acknowledge that heat is a killer if you don't treat it with some respect. So the neat thing is taking a look at heat exhaustion. If somebody's pushing themselves too far, their core body temperature keeps rising. You can't sweat away the heat, especially when there's enough moisture in the atmosphere. If there's dry air, sweat just leaps off your skin, and that evaporation process cools you off. when it's very warm and muggy, the humidity makes it difficult for the skin to clear off that moisture, and so you don't sweat and you don't conduct the heat away from you quite as well. So you get someone who goes way too far, way too fast, lawn mowing, jogging, whatever, working outdoors in oppressive conditions. The person may become faint, they may fall over, they may become dizzy before that happens, they may lose some motor control. You will notice a excessive amount of perspiration. The person is going to be soaked in sweat. The skin will sometimes be on the pale side because the blood supply is going in different directions. The skin may be clammy, it may be cool, but the person is just way too hot. The person may begin, sorry to say this, but barfing up stuff that they might have had before. The pulse will be very rapid and weak. There could be muscle cramps on here, but mainly you're looking at the confusion, the nausea, and the excessive sweating. That is, again, heat exhaustion. Now, going up a level, you're not listening to your body's signals. You're going overboard. You're mowing the entire 2 acres of yard in incredible heat and humidity, and you just say, oh, I can get it done, no problem, a couple more hours, I'll be just okay with that. This is the big thing. You still have, again, a lot of skin conditions on here, including a lot of other conditions, including nausea, possible vomiting, rapid, strong pulse, muscle cramps, dizziness, a big headache, and you also may see somebody lose consciousness. This is the big key right here, to where you want to watch anybody who's doing this. The characteristics of heat stroke are the big thing, and why we do that quiz for today is talking about the body at that point in time just basically says, I quit, I can't do anymore. This is a true, 911 emergency. This is what you really have to watch out for, to where if the person loses consciousness, their skin will not be clammy and soaked with sweat. At that point in time, the person will stop sweating. So the skin might be clammy at first, but then it dries up because there's not enough way for the body's air conditioning to cool you off. So dry skin is going to be a very big classification there. It also is, again, someone who has a headache or they pass out. They're just totally gone at that point in time with any consciousness, or they may be exceptionally incapacitated mentally to where they don't know what's going on, they don't know where they are, things like that. Now, for heat exhaustion, if they're still sweating and overheating, time to take a break. Slow it down. Get into a cool place, air conditioning, shade, a nice breeze in the fan, out of the sun. That's going to be one of the best things you can do. Now, if the person is fully conscious, then they can sip water. If you drink too much of it too fast, you're probably going to reissue that, and that could lead to some painful cramps, thermal cramping on the inside. Good shower, cooling down. Don't soak them in ice water because that also could lead to thermal shock on the outside. But again, they only take water if they're conscious. You don't try to force water on an unconscious person, and you want to get them to that cool place first and foremost. Out of the sun, into the shade, air conditioning, and they need to rest for a little bit. To those bosses out there and the drafters of the legislation that say, oh, people who work out in the sun doing their jobs, they don't deserve to have a break, and so if they take breaks, they should probably be fired. That's some of the worst ideas in legislative history as far as I'm concerned, because quarterbacks on football teams will have more breaks than some people will under some of these new state laws. So that is something to really think about for personal safety. Here's the thing about heat stroke, to where, again, the skin is dry, the person may fall unconscious. The dry skin, this person needs help immediately, as in call 911 immediately and get someone there with medical knowledge to help out. Yes, you need to move them into the cool. Yes, you can sprinkle them with water. Do not give them anything to drink, because if they're unconscious, they could aspirate that. And again, don't soak them in ice water, because that thermal shock that could be fatal as well. So you want to make certain that you are cooling the person off in the shade, in the air conditioning, but don't soak them down and don't force water on them, because that, again, could lead to a lot of other problems on there. So this is a great graphic to have around. If you can find this and post this someplace at your place of work, if they haven't done that already, this would be an excellent idea to make sure that you have around, and watch for this even before anybody hits this stage to where you are panting for breath. You need a lot more water. You've got these heat cramps when you're doing exercise outside. Those are some of the most painful knots in my system that I have ever had. So that is really something to watch. If you reach this point, time to take a break. Legal considerations aside, if you keep pushing someone, and this is one of the things I was kind of curious about when drafting these laws, probably by legislators in an air-conditioned chamber, the idea of saying that a person needs to keep working and doesn't require breaks for safety, doesn't that mean that the people who drafted the laws are going to be legally liable for pushing those people towards a medical emergency? Because that sounds like a very bad legal type situation to put your state in when you do those types of laws. So for right now, again, if you reach heat exhaustion territory, lots of sweating, you're starting to lose consciousness, you're very discombobulated, take a break. Take, again, a little bit of time to reacclimate. You don't have to do the entire lawn in one entire push. You can take a break for a while. It's not going to be all that bad. So cool off, stay safe. That's going to be one of the best things that you can possibly do to help yourself out. So please consider that, and please keep it tuned to News 12, because, again, over the course of the next several days, it is looking like we are going to be seeing the potential of a lot more problems heading our direction, because toward the end of the month, way above normal temperatures for a very long period of time. So I just don't see really any good relief in store for any part of the viewing area pretty much anytime soon. So that is something that we are really going to have to be considering. Let's be careful out there. That's all there is really to it at this point. So speaking of safety, let's go ahead and talk about the tropics, because this has been a concern over the last several days. And this gets really interesting here, because the temperatures, we've showed you the temperature of the Gulf in the last couple of times. We'll show it to you again in a little bit. Temperatures of the Gulf and the Caribbean are where they should be in late August. That is 2 months ahead of schedule. Now that means there is tons of energy from the ocean surface to be able to, for these storms, these type of storms, to draw on to get more unstable, warm, moist air going up into the core and to develop into a stronger storm. In some cases, remember Otis back here around Acapulco last year went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane in 9 hours. So that, again, is really something to consider on here. But potential tropical cyclone, it is almost at strength where it will get a name and become a tropical storm. That has not happened as of this recording, so it is possible that could happen at any point in time. The pressure is dropping. It's moving slowly to the northwest, and it looks like for right now, the big thing we're considering at this time is the fact that with high pressure out over the Atlantic pushing warm, moist air off the Caribbean, and with this area of low pressure rotating counterclockwise, that's a very good funneling effect, putting the moisture between, say, west of New Orleans and down toward the Rio Grande. That could be, according to what we've seen by some of the National Weather Service and some of the more vocal weather media out there, we could be talking about not inches but feet of rainfall from the system if it doesn't make its way toward land sooner. Once these things move over land, they lose half of their power because they're moving over that dry area where they can't pick up more moisture right from where they are, right over where they happen to form. So this is one of the things we're going to have to watch. If you're planning a trip between Houston and around the area of down toward the Rio Grande and around the area close to south of Corpus Christi, to where we see that potential for some more problems going on down that direction. We could be looking at tons of rainfall, gusty winds, not great for a beach vacation. And then you're thinking, okay, Brownsville, maybe we'll consider that now. Corpus Christi, we'll just wait about a week or so. Well, in the best parlance of late night television, but wait, there's more. When I saw this, I thought the National Hurricane Center had some mixed signals that we've got PTC1 moving up this direction. Well, they've reissued that area as a potential area to watch, to where in the tropical discussions, a new disturbance forming on the heels of the old one, PTC1 up here. There's a possibility of another system developing here in the exact same area and following the exact same path. There's not much of a chance right now, 20%, but that's where PTC1 started off about, give or take, about a week ago. So it is possible, if conditions are right, we may see a second storm system down to the south of the first one. Whether or not that happens, again, that's going to take some time to see what goes on. And if you haven't seen this graphic before, this is very much on the worrisome side, because the waters of the Gulf, and you can even trace out where the loop current is right there, up against the coastline all the way back to Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula, the Bay of Campeche. Here, temperatures are in the mid to upper 80s. And again, if you've never studied tropical meteorology before, the warmer the water gets and the more water vapor there is, the more storms moving over that very warm water can take advantage of that, pull that moisture up, grow in size and strength. It's called RI, rapid intensification. It happened with Otis last year, 9 hours from a tropical storm to a maximum Category 5 hurricane. Could it happen again? Yes. With these conditions, absolutely. If the conditions are right, it's a very good possibility that we could see that. Right now, I don't see anything really major going on. The experts at the National Hurricane Center, even though it's very warm toward the coast, are saying we could get a tropical storm. Right now, it does not look like a hurricane. So hopeful, again, on that one. But what we have been watching out there with this system going on, we could see, again, that storm system, possibly another one forming as we go into the next several days. And it looks to be, again, toward about the end of the week, we could be looking at better conditions for development. That system off the Atlantic, that could be something to watch for Florida and around the Carolinas and Georgia. And again, this system, as it goes up and over, will hit land and dissipate. But there is the possibility that we could see a strong tropical storm by the time this makes its way into northeast Mexico and the Rio Grande Valley. A lot could still change, but again, if you haven't been watching anything into and around the area south of Houston, I would be very cautious in watching this particular system getting closer to that area. Anything along the Texas coast, you could wind up with a lot of problems going down into a rain and wind-soaked area. So for now, it is still a potential tropical cyclone, but it is, again, gaining strength, and it's something to watch. So keep it tuned to News 12 for the latest, and we'll keep you advised on that. We're pushing half an hour, and my voice has taken a beating over the last few days, so I'm going to try to wrap this up here in just a little bit. Still no comments in the chat section of Twitch or YouTube, so anybody who's tuned in, thanks a lot for watching. Thanking News 12 viewer Deb Campbell from Dunlap, Tennessee. We've all heard red skies at night, sailor's delight, pink skies in the morning. I don't know what that poem would be, but a beautiful pastel-colored picture from Dunlap on the morning of June 1st. Right before apparently some rain moved in. So thank you very much, Deb Campbell from Dunlap, Tennessee, for sending that in. If you've got pictures to share, let's see them. Send them in to us at pictures@wdef.com. Drop them to our website, wdef.com/photos, or drop them off on our social media pages, and give us a description and a location. If you want to be anonymous, great, fine, no problem. But please give us an idea as to where you were and what you were doing or where you were doing it at. That would be a very big help to people like me, so we can tell everybody else without having to make anything up. So thank you very much there. Let's see if the Almanac page has made it back. Has not at this point in time. I do hope we don't have a data loss at this point. That could be a tragic situation for later on. All right, that should do it for tonight. That's an update on the tropics, the heat, all kinds of other stuff going on. We've done the picture of the day, got the 7-day forecast in there. National Lightning Safety Awareness Week will be coming up in the course of the next several days as we go into Sunday. So if you'd like to know more about what's going on there and how you can stay safer, please give us a shout at wdef.com/weather. We'll have more information on that coming up here a little bit later tonight. But for tonight, Tuesday, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now and send you back to your regular Tuesday evening format. And don't forget to drop by News 12 at 11. I believe Dave Staley will be anchoring once again. Rick Nyman has your sports. I'll have weather. And Chip Chapman will have your forecast bright and early on Wednesday morning, the 19th of June. So thanks for joining us from downtown Chattanooga, WDEF News 12 studios on Broad Street. I'm Chief Meteorologist Austin Onek. Stay tuned for more with News 12 on air and online. Bottom of your screen, wdef.com/weather. Please be safe. Stay, again, in touch with News 12 for more. And, of course, we'll have